Here now, retired U.S. Army Major General William Enyart. Good morning to you. What's your read on this saber rattling from Russia right now and Vladimir Putin?
Well, good morning, Marni. Frankly, it's more of the same. Putin loves to ratchet up the tension, and he seems to escalate a bit at a time. So it's absolutely nothing new. In fact, I think more serious probably were the bombs that the Russian intelligence agencies placed on DHL planes. That's the German equivalent, really, of FedEx or UPS. Had those bombs gone off over the Atlantic, as they were supposed to, we would have had two major cargo carriers go down in the North Atlantic. Putin is continuing to ratchet pressure up on Western Europe.
What more can you tell us about this U.S. base in Poland and some of the threats specifically to anyone who arms Ukraine?
Well, the missile base in Poland is, as your previous commentator noted, a defensive base. It is an anti-missile base. It is not an aggressive base. It is not designed to launch missiles against Russia, but rather to protect our NATO allies and Poland and our other NATO allies from a Russian air attack. In fact, Poland had to scramble their fighter jets just the other day when Russia launched that ballistic missile. The Russians have been increasingly aggressive. They have overflown Poland. And so this defensive measure is absolutely appropriate.
General, talk about Russia's military capability, and has that been diminished at all in the last 2 years since they have spent so much of their resources on Ukraine?
Well, I have to think it absolutely has been diminished. I think the Russian military, particularly the army, is bleeding out. That's why they had to bring in 11,000 North Koreans to help them. The Russians, since they initially invaded Ukraine via Belarus and launched that armored attack that very nearly got to Kyiv, have been unable to establish any type of maneuver warfare. They've not been able to break their massive amounts of tanks through. And in fact, the Ukrainians have done an absolutely remarkable job. You know, Ukraine's a third the size of Russia. And they've done an absolutely remarkable job in stopping their armor cold. And the Russians are simply attacking with 1 and 2 troops at a time now, because Ukraine has done such an effective job with their artillery and with their drones.
And then I start to wonder, you know, if the resources on the ground, the military, the manpower starts to diminish and Putin is cornered. We had these conversations at the start of the invasion of Ukraine, you know, the unpredictable nature of the Russian president and what he does next. And if he is backed into a corner, what does desperation look like? Does that raise the nuclear concern?
You know, Russia, of course, is very well equipped with nuclear weapons. Were Russia to launch any type of nuclear attack, whether it would be one or multiple, it would be absolutely a red line for the entire world, really. You know, that's just been so forbidden since World War II that I don't think even Putin would want to cross that red line. He would certainly lose China. I think Iran and North Korea would stick with him, but I think the Chinese would disavow him. So I think that it's unlikely to happen. Also, this medium-range ballistic missile that Russia launched has a maximum range of maybe 3,500 miles. So it's pretty unlikely that those would be used against the U.S. homeland, although it could certainly be used against our bases in Europe. Additionally, the Russians don't have very many of these. This is a brand new weapon system. And so the impact of this particular weapon system is likely to be pretty limited.
Thank you for watching. Go to NewsNationNow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.